Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with grilled Greek chicken breast with whipped feta. That's right, I'm going to show you my favorite marinade and technique for grilling boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which can be a challenge since they're often so dry and bland, but not with this method. Plus, I'm going to show you how to make my new favorite thing to eat, which is whipped feta. So yes, you're actually getting 2 video recipes this time, for the same low price of free. So with that, let's go ahead and get started by prepping our chicken. And what I have here are 4 rather large boneless, skinless breasts. And we do want to use relatively large ones here. I would say a minimum of 7 to 8 ounces each. And what we'll do to prep these is simply cut them in half lengthwise, pretty much exactly in half. Although generally one side is a little bit fatter than the other, so I think it's okay to cheat over and make that side a little bit smaller. And there's a few really good reasons to do this. All right, by cutting these in half, we have more surface area for the marinade to get into, as well as later we'll have more surface area on the grill to brown and caramelize, which I believe is the same thing. And if someone just wants half a breast when we serve later, they are not forced to awkwardly go around the table asking people who wants to split a breast. So for all those reasons and more, I think this is a great idea. And that's it. Once those are set, we'll pop them in the fridge and we'll move on to the marinade, which will begin with some red wine vinegar or the vinegar of your choice, followed by some kosher salts, as well as some freshly ground black pepper. And yes, you knew it was coming. We'll also do a little bit of cayenne. And then we can't call it Greek chicken without some herbs, so we're going to do some dried thyme, some dried oregano and rosemary. And of course you can use fresh if you want, but generally dry herbs work better in a marinade than fresh ones. And the same thing goes for our garlic addition. All right, I'm going to use some dried garlic powder here. But don't worry, we are going to have some fresh garlic in our whipped feta. And that's it, we'll give this a quick mix before we transfer in our chicken, at which point we'll toss that around until thoroughly and evenly coated. And I was about to say that's going to be it for the marinade, but it's not. We are also going to add some olive oil to this, but I have a theory that it's better to toss the chicken with the vinegar and the other ingredients first, since that'll give it a chance to start absorbing before these pieces get coated with the oil, which if you added the oil first, may actually insulate the meat and not allow the same penetration. And no, I can't prove this theory, and my evidence is purely anecdotal, but it just feels right, and that's good enough for me. And then what we'll do once that has been tossed in the oil is go ahead and arrange those in one nice neat layer. And then we'll cover this in plastic, and we will let it marinate in the fridge for a minimum of 1 hour to a maximum of overnight, with the sweet spot for me being 2 to 3 hours. And while we're waiting, we can move on to our whipped feta, which is basically going to be equal parts of Greek yogurt, plus ideally a Greek feta, or something else with a similarly appropriate texture, which is as soft and creamy as possible. Okay, we need soft and smushy, not firm and dry and crumbly. And what we'll do is add that to our bowl of yogurt. And for heaven's sake, buy a whole piece and crumble it in yourself. Right, that pre-crumbled stuff is going to be much drier and not as good. And seriously, if you don't have 10 seconds to crumble the cheese in, you probably shouldn't be cooking. So unless that's all you can find, get some good stuff. I know, that was tough love, but love nonetheless. And then the only other things we're going to put in here would be a little bit of finely crushed garlic, plus about a tablespoon of freshly chopped mint, and then last but not least, the zest from 1 lemon. And if you're wondering, shouldn't we put the juice in too? Won't that make it better? Well, no, we shouldn't, and no, it won't. Okay, we already have the tanginess from the yogurt, and if we add the lemon juice, it will be too acidic, and we will kill the flavor of the feta. We will kill it dead. So zest only, please. And that's it. This is now ready to whip, which I'm going to do with this electric hand mixer. Although if you're not into modern conveniences, you can whip this up by hand with a whisk. I mean, you are, after all, the Marquis de Sade of whether to go old school or mod. But as long as you whip this until it's nice and light and fluffy, it really doesn't matter. And that's it. Other than giving this a taste or 3, it is ready to use. And we can simply pop that in the fridge until our chicken's grilled. But before I show you that, let me make a suggestion. Since we're going to have a grill full of hot coals, before we do our chicken, why not fire roast some onions and peppers to serve with it? So that's exactly what I did. And when I quartered those red onions, I made sure to cut through the root so they'd stay together. And do not worry about the black on the outer layers. All right, we'll peel that first layer off. And we'll be left with just that sweet, smoky, tender onion underneath. And then for the peppers, I just like to roast them whole. And then once those cool, we can peel off the skin and slice them up. But whether you grill anything else or not, we're going to want to prep a very, very hot grill. All right, the hotter the better. And we'll go ahead and place down our marinated chicken. And my basic game plan with these is to cook them for about 4 minutes per side, at which point I just like to start turning and tossing them until I'm happy with how they look and they are just cooked through. And again, we want a really, really hot fire. All right, white hot is a thing and red hot is a thing, but there's no such thing as black hot. So make sure your coals have turned mostly white, and you can only hold your hand over them for a few seconds before you have to pull it away. And of course, as usual, whenever we grill over coals, we're going to have some spots that are hotter than others. So don't be afraid to rearrange and reposition. And no, you do not need a nice, fancy, expensive grill to get good results. All right, this one cost $18, and I don't want to give the name of the store, but it rhymes with Malwart. But it still did an amazing job of cooking this chicken. So if you don't have a grill, the next time you're out buying a 24-pack of socks, maybe pick one of these bad boys up. But anyway, like I said, I went ahead and grilled that for about 4 minutes per side, at which point I just started tossing and turning, moving and mixing, until I thought they were perfectly done, which for me is when they stop feeling mushy and they spring back to the touch. Or of course you can play it safe and use a thermometer and cook those at whatever temperature you're okay with, which for me would be about 150. And that's it, we'll head back inside, where we will let our chicken rest for just a couple minutes, while we prep our serving platter with our whipped feta, which I'm going to spread out to make a beautiful base. And yes, in case you're wondering, this platter, quote unquote, is actually a leftover piece of tile from our kitchen. So yes, Michelle and I are literally going to be eating off the floor. And if you like this idea, but you don't have leftover tile, just go to a tile store and check out the remnants and the samples, and you actually could find some very cool stuff. But anyway, we'll go ahead and spread out our whipped feta, and then we will top and or surround that with our grilled vegetables. And once that was set, I went ahead and placed over my chicken, which because I have 8 beautifully browned pieces, instead of just 4 beautifully browned pieces, according to my calculations, looks twice as nice. And of course, please drizzle over those accumulated juices. And if you don't, I'm going to hear about it. And then remembering I'm trying to pass this off as Greek, I went ahead and drizzled this very generously with olive oil. And then speaking of olive, I also decided to garnish with some beautiful green Greek olives, which I get from Italy. And after arranging those a little too precisely, I went ahead and finished up with some freshly chopped herbs in the form of Italian parsley and mint. And that's it, my grilled Greek chicken breast with whipped feta was ready to enjoy. And that, my friends, for boneless, skinless chicken breast, which is just about the least exciting thing I can think to eat, was absolutely spectacular. All right, that very, very simple oil and vinegar marinade just works so perfectly here. And anything, and I mean that literally, would taste amazing with this whipped feta, which has a perfect balance of tanginess and saltiness and savoriness, with that little bit of hint of garlic and mint and lemon in the background. All right, just an absolutely perfect pairing, especially with a piece of that roasted smoky pepper, and eventually that fire-roasted onion. And above and beyond the amazing flavor, what I like so much about this specific marinade, even if you happen to overcook your chicken a little bit, it is actually going to stay moist and tender, unless of course you really overcook it, in which case it will be dry. Okay, it's not a magic marinade, like that one in Harry Potter, or at least I assume there was one in Harry Potter. Or I've never read the books or seen the movies. But anyway, the point is you do not have to grill these perfectly. All right, just get them close. That's all we ever ask. And no, we're not going to have our guests eat off the platter. Okay, people can go ahead and scoop up a piece of chicken, along with plenty of that whipped feta. And if you're thinking that sounds great, but aren't we going to leave some of that stuff on the platter? Well, yes, a little bit, but that's very easy to clean up, using some nice pita bread you warmed on the grill. Oh yes, when you're done, that's going to clean it up real good. And no, you don't have to do the platter presentation. You can if you want to do the exact same thing on a smaller scale on a plate, which I think also looks fantastic. But either way, I really do believe this is the best way to cook boneless, skinless chicken breasts. And if you're like me, that whipped feta is going to be your new favorite thing to eat. So for all those reasons and more, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.